Well, hello and welcome to a special Movie Burner podcast from Movie Burner Entertainment. We're only 8 days away from the release of Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi, and we're talking Star Wars for the next 8 days, from The Phantom Menace to The Force Awakens. We'll be discussing these in episodic order, and we will even throw in the first of the standalone films, Rogue One, for good measure. The countdown begins.
Yeah, and the first of the episodic saga is of course The Phantom Menace, which opened up the much maligned prequel trilogy, releasing 16 years after the original. It certainly isn't the worst of the prequels by any means. There was a lot of good and bad in there. When did you first hear about its potential release, Stephen, and what was your initial thoughts after seeing it for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in an era, I was born in 76, so the original trilogy for me was my life at that point. You had to wait 16 years for the next adventures in the Star Wars saga. First I heard of the new Star Wars film was in a video game magazine around the mid-1990s that was a topic on computer-generated imagery and mentioned that Star Wars creator George Lucas was working on a new trilogy set before the events of the classic trilogy. Apparently it was a success of Jurassic Park's visual effects that convinced Lucas that it was time to start work on the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker. And obviously I think it was round about the end of 1998, the beginning of 1999 that we got our first look at that trailer. Every saga has a beginning.
Yeah, and I have to say that trailer was mighty impressive.
Yeah, I mean the marketing for the film, you can't fault that. It was a terrific trailer. The music, I think we might have got a bit of a sample of the Duel of Fates in there, I'm not sure. We got our first look at the villain, Darth Maul, and unfortunately we also got a look at our Gungans as well. But no, the trailer itself overall was very impressive, and I was looking forward to it. The countdown for May 1999 had begun.
Yeah, and in terms of the story itself, it kicks off with, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn landing on the Trade Federation ship as envoys, I believe, for peace negotiations.
Yeah.
And things got a little bit odd, to say the least, when the treacherous Newt Gunray, the Viceroy of the Federation, attempts to assassinate him. Tries to do this through lethal toxic gas. He's clearly never met Jedi and realised that they survived pretty much everything. What did you make of that intro, Stephen?
Yeah, it was mixed. I thought the opening shots of the ship approaching was very well done. You get the feel of the Star Wars galaxy right away there, and then those dudes, I don't know what their species is, spoke, and
I think they're I can't even pronounce it.
Nemoidian, yeah, that rings a bell. We've spoke about this previously, fan edits, where one of the edits uses alien languages and voices for these characters with the use of subtitles for the audience, which I felt that's what they should have done with this release. It certainly worked for the characters of Jabba the Hutt and Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I don't understand what George was thinking with that one. Obviously, as you say, even Greedo in A New Hope spoke in an alien dialect. I don't know why he decided to give these guys a fake Asian Chinese accent, whatever it is. It's slightly racist, and it just doesn't. It's not right. It shouldn't be in a Star Wars film. And of course, as we move on to certain other infamous species that pop up in this film, we'll get into depth again about
the other thing. Yeah, the other thing from the opening sequences that really stood out was the imagery and the effects, and more worryingly, the technology. That was my concerns at this point. The technology looked more impressive in a storyline that was set before the events that are set 30 years later. This was never rectified throughout the prequel trilogy, although familiar ships and droids, etc., crept in eventually. But the technology 30 years previous to A New Hope was more advanced. Yeah. It was a strange decision to make.
Yeah, I think the fans have since trying to retcon that by saying that obviously in the original trilogy we're seeing slightly poorer locations. We're seeing the rebellion for the most part who have not got a lot of money, so they're having to salvage and skimp on things. And obviously the Empire's a more military environment, so it's very clean and sterile, so you're not getting the fancy locations, whereas in the prequels I think the way they get around it was by saying obviously Naboo, Feed and Coruscant that we visit, these are quite opulent places, so they're certainly richer, the people that stay there, and the technologies they probably can afford better technology. But it didn't make sense. You're right.
I mean that point unknown to the Jedi, just following on from what you said there, John, is that the situation has been manipulated by Palpatine, the Senator of Naboo. I don't think he was a Senator at this point. I'm not sure.
No, he might have been a Senator. Yeah, I think he might have been. Yeah.
And secretly, a Dark Lord of the Sith called Darth Sidious. Now, this was another issue I had. I think he comes through the first time we get to see Darth Sidious is in holographic form.
That's correct. Yeah.
There wasn't a secret there, as far as I was concerned. Even if you hadn't saw the original trilogy, you didn't have to be Columbo to work out they were the same person.
Yeah, it was immediately palpable as soon as you heard him speaking. And obviously Ian McDermott's got a very recognisable voice, so I don't know what they were trying to do with that one, making it a mystery. As you say, it's like Columbo, you know who the person is. Yeah.
I mean, as far as the casting goes, Ewan McGregor, I'll put my hands up. I'd only saw Ewan McGregor in Trainspotting and Shallow Grave at this point, and I was a little bit precious over the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't think anybody was good enough to play the role as far as I was concerned, and certainly not someone that was a junkie and Trainspotting. I don't know what it was, but I just thought it was a bad decision, and that's why I'm not in the business of making films or casting or anything like that, because I don't have a clue, because it was one of the better things about the film. Liam Neeson carried most of the film in his role. I thought the character of Qui-Gon, although at times I do think was unnecessary, I felt that perhaps that role should have been more carried by Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was still a good character. Natalie Portman was in there as well, very young at the time. I think she was actually still at high school. Ian McDermott, as we know from Return of the Jedi and the special edition of Empire Strikes Back, you knew that he was going to perform brilliantly in this film. Also, Terence Stamp was in there as well as Chancellor Valorum.
Another August as well.
Yeah.
Who played Shmi Skywalker?
Yeah, we'll go back to her in a minute. But no, I mean, it was a good cast. There is problems with this film. The dialogue delivery and the execution is what failed it, as far as I'm concerned. There doesn't appear to be a lead character. Is it Qui-Gon? Is it Queen Amidala? Is it Palpatine? It sure wasn't Obi-Wan Kenobi or Anakin Skywalker, who you would think it would be.
Yeah, that was a big mistake they made as well, I think, casting Anakin as such a young child, really. I think they should have cast somebody of Hayden Christensen's age in the first one. Then you would have had a better arc to maybe manipulate him over 3 films instead of just the 2. It felt a little bit rushed throughout the prequel trilogy, and I agree with you, there wasn't really a lead as such. But in terms of visuals in this film, this is one thing it can't be criticised. I mean, as you touched upon, you get the inspiration after watching Jurassic Park. The visuals for its time were outstanding. Even to this day, I don't think it's the worst aged prequel film. I think Feed still stands up. So obviously the Gungans look horrific, and I would cut them out the film anyway.
Well, I actually thought that the introduction to Jar Jar Binks, the imagery, the way they used the shadows of the trees on this, and you've got to remember this was very, very early days in this technology, was very impressive. The interactions with Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson at this point was impressive for 1999.
I think there was actually a point, though, wasn't there, where Ewan McGregor kind of looks into space and he's supposed to be like,
I think
Ahmed Best, I believe his name was, wasn't it, the boy who played him?
Yeah, I think he was a foot taller than Ewan McGregor, which didn't help. But no, the characters themselves, the species, the Gungans, was very off-putting. If you thought the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi were a little bit naff, this certainly raised the bar on naffness. But no, apart from that, the visuals, space scenes were impressive. The sets as well were very impressive as well. I did read something about the sets, certainly on the Phantom Menace, were certainly organic, but to a point. I did read somewhere that they built them to the height of Liam Neeson, who I think was the tallest member in the cast, and anything above that was computer generated. But a lot of it's not dated, some of it is.
Yeah, I mean, I recall watching, I think, the behind the scenes, or it might have been actually more recently, a Celebration would have done an effects thing, or a panel, and it actually showed you them building the hangar for the pod racers, and that was all created. It was a model, it was a fairly big model where the chap creating it could actually crawl inside and place them. That was very impressive. And yeah, just touching on the Gungans, as we said earlier about the accents, what was with their accents? It was like a strange Caribbean, again, slightly racist accent. What was he doing with it? I don't know. In terms of the story, obviously some new technology in this as well. We've got the droidicas and the battle droids and the troopers.
Well, this is what I'm talking about with the technology. Yeah. Those droids, especially those ones that roll
the droidicas,
with the shields, why stop using them? They were flawless as far as I was concerned. You know, why were they not in A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back? Well, we know the real reason for that, but as far as the story goes, the storytelling, it doesn't make any sense.
And what was your thoughts? I'm interested in knowing what your thoughts were when we finally meet the Gungans in the Gungan city and we meet Boss Nass. What was your thoughts on Boss Nass? Also played by Brian Blessed, who's quite a well-known name over here.
I mean, looking back, my initial thoughts were, has Disney bought over Star Wars at this point in Lucasfilm? You know, which they eventually did do, but I don't know. It just took you right out of the galaxy. Certainly, you understand that it's a new era in filmmaking. You understand it's a new era in the Star Wars saga as well. But for me, it didn't feel like Star Wars. It felt like some kind of fantasy film. The characters themselves, the story at that point, I don't know what it was. It felt forced. I'm pretty sure the Jedi could have come up with a better way of getting to the city, you know.
Yeah, they went through the planet, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then you had that horrific big fish eating a bigger fish, a bigger fish scene. That was terrible. It
was just, it felt unnecessary, you know. I saw a lot of the cutscenes from that that weren't used, and the extras on the bonus discs from the DVD package. There should have been a lot more of that on those DVD packages as far as I was concerned. Totally unnecessary. A lot of it looks dated as well now.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's dated terribly. But obviously after that they do reach feed and we finally get to meet Queen Amidala, and the story progresses fairly quickly after that. Obviously there's a full-on invasion happening at that point, and then they have to kind of retreat from the planet, and we're of course introduced to a familiar location in Tatooine thanks to a broken hyperdrive.
Yeah, this is when the Jedi discover a young Tatooine slave named Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one destined to bring balance to the Force, and who will grow up obviously to become Darth Vader. Casting of Jake Lloyd, John, what do you think of that?
Not a lot. I'm not surprised he's since gave up acting, let's just say that. Most of the bad lines seem to go to Anakin as a character throughout the prequel trilogy. It certainly haunted Hayden Christensen's career for many years afterwards, and I actually think it led to Jake Lloyd having a bit of a breakdown afterwards. I think he suffered bullying in school and stuff because of his role in it, which was sad really in a way, but some of the lines like "Are you an angel?" and things like that, and "Whoop yippee," it's just...
the creator of C-3PO as well was totally unnecessary and forced. It kind of shrunk the universe a little bit with that decision. But no, getting back to Jake Lloyd, I did read that about him. It was very unfortunate, you know, his experience on his Star Wars career. No, but I don't think it would have mattered who was in that role. I did see the additions from the bonus discs for that character, and I don't think it would have mattered who they casted in that. I think they made the character too young. I think that was the problem. We really should have been introduced to him round about the same age as we were introduced to Luke Skywalker. But no, I mean, you can't fault the boy for that. It's nothing to do with his acting abilities or anything like that. It was actually pretty good in that Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But he was playing a kid. You're going to get that kind of performance out of a kid. Playing a kid, obviously, you know, but playing a role like this, I just felt that they made the wrong decision making him that age. I think it was about 8 or something like that, I can't remember. And it was just a bad decision.
Yeah, and it wasn't helped by his mother, Shmi Skywalker, played by, of course, Pernilla August, not being able to act either. One of the most wooden acting performances I think I've ever seen in any film.
Yeah, I mean, even our death scene in the second one was horrifically acted.
And we're obviously then introduced to Watto and the kind of a shoehorn Jabba the Hutt with the whole pod racing thing, the gambling. That was actually quite well done though. I liked the way they managed to shoehorn him in.
Yeah, I think Bib Fortuna was in there as well, looking a little bit younger, slightly. But no, this point in the story, we understand that they have to make a deal with Watto, as you said, to get the parts they need for their ship to get off that planet. I don't know, it's just bored me. It really bored me. I just felt everything was so forced. Everything going through the Gungan underwater city to conveniently requiring parts on Tatooine where we've been before. The saving grace in that whole sequence was the pod racing, John.
Yeah, I enjoyed the pod racing, I have to admit. As a young child watching it, I think I was about 9 or 10 years old, I did enjoy the pod racing. I actually had one of the games that came out not long after that, and that was a great game as well. That was one of the better moments in the Phantom Menace. Obviously quick paced, exciting, and a plethora of different aliens and stuff like that. Again, it was a little bit cringing moments where he's breaking down and then he fights his way back to France. A little convenient, but I suppose it adds a bit of excitement to the story. As I say, it was a convenient way of introducing Jabba the Hutt into the story as well, even if it was for a short period. Also the villainous Sebulba as well, who uttered another famous line, which is the infamous line now, the Bantha Poodoo line.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much summed up everything that was wrong with the Phantom Menace in one line. Just terrible, absolutely terrible. But the one good thing that came from that sequence on the time spent on Tatooine, it wasn't the storms up Annie bit or Jar Jar nicking apples with his tongue. It was the introduction of Darth Maul and the brief fight I should say, with Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, the reveal of Darth Maul came a little bit earlier in the movie on Coruscant, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
It was a very brief scene with Darth Sidious. The introduction to him was very impressive. It was quite a dark scene. I loved the voice as well. Ray Park, obviously, portraying him. So getting to see him in action right away on Tatooine as Anakin and Qui-Gon make their way back to the ship, quite a good scene.
Yeah, it was a brief little fight with him and Qui-Gon, quite enjoyable. Although Qui-Gon's escape on the ramp was a little bit unrealistic, that leap. But yeah, then again, we'll see that later in the film where they also use the Force to leap. After that, I think we have a little trek into Coruscant, don't we? And we get to meet Palpatine in the flesh. Or did he make an appearance prior to that in the flesh? I don't think he did he?
No, he
that was the first.
It's the first time we see Palpatine and Chancellor Valorum in person. And it's really just introduction scenes, that's all it is. There's nothing really there that's groundbreaking and storytelling or anything like that. It's really just introducing the characters. And this is where I'm pretty sure Padme, or the Queen at this point, goes off on her story and the Jedi go off on theirs to the Council, and this is the first time we get to see the Jedi Council. Yeah,
that's right. And just touching briefly back on that scene, although as an introduction we do get to see his manipulative side early doors, where he's telling her you can't get back to Naboo, you may die or something along those lines. But he clearly wants her to get back to Naboo because he's running the show in behind, so that was enjoyable. I love Ian McDiarmid. And obviously we then get introduced to the Jedi Council, and this is when Qui-Gon breaks the news to him that there's obviously a Sith on the loose. No,
I mean, at this point, this is the reveal to the Jedi Council that the Sith exist. They don't seem too bothered about it. There seems to be a little bit of denial. They haven't existed for a millennium or whatever it is, and they don't seem to be up or down about it. And this is the point where they said they'll look into this. Qui-Gon's obviously got another agenda. He wants to highlight to the Council of Anakin's midi-chlorian count. Another horrendous decision in writing from Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, I think this just again sums up why George Lucas shouldn't, one, be directing a film, or two, be getting allowed anywhere near the script. He's a great world builder, and he can create a world out of his imagination, but in terms of storytelling and dialect ideas, no man, the midi-chlorians, no.
But, I mean, the theory of that really does contradict Alec Guinness's line about how the Force binds a galaxy together. That line from A New Hope, it totally contradicts that. Again, it's just bad decision making. Yeah,
there's lots of little contradictions and things that screw up the continuity of the originals in this film. Obviously, as you were touching upon earlier, the lack of leaders in the film. Qui-Gon shouldn't even exist, and he certainly shouldn't exist as the master of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi was trained by Yoda in the original trilogy. Why were you thinking, George? What were you thinking?
I will say one thing though, the actual visuals for Coruscant were very impressive. We'll certainly touch on this tomorrow, but as far as the visuals go, very much inspired by the likes of Blade Runner, and to a lesser extent the Fifth Element, but the visuals, you can't fault them.
Oh, you can't fault the visuals in this film, no, certainly not. And then obviously during this point when Anakin's up in front of the council, we see a slight parallels with perhaps Empire Strikes Back, with Luke being told he's too old to be trained, and they do this again with Anakin. I think this is really the problem with the Jedi in the prequel trilogy as a whole. They're slightly arrogant and set in their ways, and they can't think outside the box, and we see that occur and manifest itself in a couple of ways. But also the treatment of Anakin, ultimately they were right though, but yeah.
I mean, storytelling, from that point of view, talk about boxing yourself in, and writing these rules about Jedi have to be raised from birth. There could only be two, as far as the Sith go. It really does box you in, John, when you're trying to be creative. It's another bad decision.
And after that, we then head back to Naboo, I believe, don't we? And Padme, or Queen Amidala, has a little encounter with Boss Nass again, where she has to get down on her knees and beg for forgiveness in this sacred area in the jungle or something. I think they flee from the Trade Federation.
This is the first time we see Keira Knightley as well. I think it was her first film role, where she doubles up as Queen Amidala. I did read somewhere that the two actresses actually do look very similar, and certainly when they've got the full makeup on of the Queen. And I did read somewhere that I think it was Keira Knightley's mother had been on set one day, and she got both of them mixed up, so even her mother got them mixed up. So yeah, I mean, it was at this point the Queen and the Jedi were...
Yeah, and it was obviously at that point where Boss Nass does that strange thing with his mouth.
It was like, it reminded me, I don't know if you've ever seen that film, Tom Hanks, Turn on Hooch, where it's the big slabbery dog. That's exactly what the sound effect was like.
Yeah, and I think that's the sound form of just how bad that decision was to include this pointless race in the Star Wars canon. And that really leads us on, I think, to the finale, where it kind of splits into like a four-way perspective, doesn't it? In one scene you've got the Gungans fighting the Trade Federation on the fields, then you've got Amidala also racing to the palace to try and confront Nute Gunray. Then you've got the Jedi fighting with Darth Maul, and then finally you've got Anakin Skywalker taking to the skies or the space to take the fight to them in space.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting finale, if nothing else, I'd say that.
Yeah, the scenes with Padme getting back into the palace were fine. The actual scenes with Anakin fighting in space were great. They just weren't. There wasn't enough of any space battles in this movie.
Just touching on Amidala, what did you make of her guard? He was a little bit wooden as well, wasn't he? You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, he was replaced in the second one, I believe. I mean, it was a bit... I can't remember the chap's name, but he was... I certainly can understand why he wasn't in the second one, but no, I mean, it was another one of those parts that was just not necessary. But I mean, at this point, the sequences were all intertwined, and the battle on Theed looked like a 1990s computer game. The effects, even in 1999, I wasn't impressed with them. I've got to be honest. There was a lot of positives as far as visuals went. We've spoke about them already. This wasn't one of them. Those big ball things that they used in the battle, shield generators being generated, and all this kind of thing. It just appeared that ILM and Lucasfilm had this new toy, and it was just a cluster, of effects.
I think it was just an excuse to shields to show off that sound effect of the energy hitting off the shield, the wee pew noise it made. I think they just wanted to show that sound effect off, so they thought, we'll add a shield in, even if it adds nothing to the story, because of course you could just walk through the shield, so it wasn't much of a shield.
And then the fourth part of the sequence was obviously the battle between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, which to this day is probably the best, as far as I'm concerned, the best lightsaber battle in all the Star Wars films. As far as technique goes, emotional pull, we'll go into that more in the later episodes as far as lightsaber battles go, but this one certainly for visuals, energy, just for raw fighting, it was very impressive.
Yeah, obviously Ray Parks is, I think, a martial artist, so it helps when you've got that guy involved in the stunts process and the choreography. it just flowed beautifully, and I loved the way it was set up. The music, obviously, the famous Duel of Fates, obviously one of the iconic Star Wars themes now.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that came out of this film. Even if you hate the lot of it, you can't argue with the music and the sound and the visuals. But obviously, Duel of Fates and overplaying that lightsaber duel was epic.
Yeah, as far as the space battles, it was, when it was more or less from the point of view of Anakin. The other characters didn't really get a look in. You weren't really seen from their point of view during this sequence.
Yeah, and as you touched upon before we came on, it was highly convenient that you managed to find a ship fitted almost perfectly into, and he found a helmet which fitted almost perfectly, and then he just happened to have R2-D2 slide into the ship, which helped him control it.
And there is a thing that I always hate in films that they do. C-3PO does it in Return of the Jedi, a lot of exposition. I felt the character Anakin at this stage was doing a lot of that. What does this button do? What happens if I do this? That kind of thing. And it really takes you out of the moment, that kind of dialogue. And thankfully you had the lightsaber battles happening, in between these sequences anyway, which kind of carried the third part of the film over anyway. Yeah,
that saved the ending of this film, that lightsaber sequence. What did you make of Qui-Gon's death?
It was very emotionless, as far as I was concerned, John. I'm a big fan of Liam Neeson. I'm a big fan of the character Qui-Gon. I just felt that you knew it was coming. You knew it's always a trait in Star Wars films, especially in the first episode of a trilogy, which we are seeing now, obviously, that there is going to be a big character that dies in the third part of the film. We saw it with Alec Guinness, we saw it with Liam Neeson, and obviously with the new trilogy we saw it with Han Solo. But as far as I was concerned, there wasn't a lot of emotion involved in it. Even Ewan McGregor, who's a fantastic actor, when he's holding the head of Qui-Gon, it's so forced, his grief. Just, I don't know what it was just totally misdirected.
And I found that again later on in the prequel trilogy, they kind of contradict themselves with that end sequence where obviously Obi-Wan Kenobi flips over Darth Maul and obviously halves him in two. He had the high ground.
Yeah, that's right.
Yet he manages to flip over and take him by surprise. I found that a little bit contradictory. Nice ending though. Obviously we know now that Darth Maul didn't die in that sequence, but at the time I was incredibly disappointed that they killed this character off again. I think this was a real problem that we encountered throughout. They seem to have this.
I was more disappointed that he resurrected him, to be honest. I mean, you fall down a shaft that deep, halved in two, and then you come back from it.
I think this is why Harrison Ford was terrified. That's why they made the planet implode upon itself, just to make sure he died. But I don't understand his need to continually introduce new villains throughout the prequel trilogy. Maul was a great character and he should have survived that film. But overall, I didn't think it was the worst of the prequel trilogy. It's certainly not the worst Star Wars film. Certainly not with the existence of the special holiday edition.
No, I mean, listen, if we're going to summarise this film, it's not a bad film, but it's not a good film either. As far as visuals go, 90% of them stand up to today's standards. The pacing and the delivery of the film is where it lets it down. The actual story, John, it's not a bad story. I mean, I know people go on about the trade disputes, etc., and it's very heavy-handedly political, but the manipulation from Palpatine at this stage, this very early on in the saga, is there to be seen. It's very interesting to see how this will play out. If you're taking the film in an isolated manner, it can be quite long and played out, but when you watch the trilogy back to back, it's interesting to see that character and how he plays all the sides against each other and how it all works out for him. So as far as the story goes in the prequel trilogy, I can't fault that, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the story was okay, the visuals were great, the music was great, introduction of some characters was okay, some were terrible, such as Watto, as I mentioned, Sebulba. But obviously the negatives, as we touched upon earlier, were the introduction of the Gungans and some of the dated visuals and over-reliance on CG at times. But I thought I enjoyed the film for the most part when I was younger. In the years that have followed, my enjoyment of it's probably grown less and less, but it's not the worst.
Just getting back to the the extras, when you're seen inside of Lucasfilm at Skywalker Ranch and wherever, in ILM, etc., there did seem to be at this point a lot of yes men mentality from a lot of the ones that worked on this trilogy. I don't really want to name names or anything like that.
Yeah,
I just
that
felt,
producer.
yeah, but I think Gary Kurtz was a very strong producer in the original trilogy, and he had the right personality to tell George Lucas, when something wasn't working or etc. Also, that you've got to remember as well, this prequel trilogy was directed solely by George Lucas. That was another downfall in this trilogy, I felt, which we'll go into a wee bit more as we move on to the other episodes in the next few days. But
he's just not a good director.
No.
As I says, he's a great world creator, but he's not a good director. End of story. He just isn't.
And just touching on the character of Jar Jar and the Gungans, I've already said how annoying they were, and I just cannot believe out of everyone that worked on this film, no one thought this was a mistake. No one said, George, these characters are terrible and annoying, but what is worse is that they have a big part to play in the story. They aren't even annoying bit part characters, John. They're in a large majority of the film.
Yeah.
You look at the credits at the end. The reason I looked at the credits at the end is because I was told there was a bit of Darth Vader breathing at the very end, so that was the reason. This was before post credits and stuff like that. But the amount of people that worked on this film and not one person spoke up, or maybe they did, and we just never heard of them again.
Possible.
So that's our summary of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which was released in 1999. Tomorrow we're going to move on to Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which was released in 2002. We'd like to thank you for your time, and stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, and we'll be back tomorrow with another Movie Burner podcast.